Hi, my name is Ron Blesson and I'm in Springfield, Missouri. I worked on DEWLine between 1959 and 1962, all in the pin sector. A few days ago, actually a few weeks ago, I was contacted by Bernie Ward. Bernie was a sector man in pin sector while I was there. He was a lead mechanic, I think he worked as sector chief in some of the outside stuff. And I knew him as a real gentleman. He originally hails from the Isle of Wight, which is at the entrance to Southampton Harbour in southern England. Came to Canada, and in 1955 he and two carpenters were put on the ground at Pin 3, and they were the very first ones to build some tents, some construction tents at that site. And he worked in construction on the DEWLine for the Northern Construction Company from 1955 until the DEWLine went operational and was handed over to Federal Electric Corporation in 1957. I'll get these right yet. Bernie is at this point, and I'm filming this in March of 2016, at this point he's 91 years of age. He's got some medical issues, he's had problems with his legs, and he has a couple of neighbor caretakers that come in and apparently do a bang-up job of taking care of him on his daily needs. And one of these caretakers, because Bernie talked incessantly about his time on DEWLine, one of them went on to did a Google search, I suppose, and found Larry Wilson's DEWLine site and started looking at some of the pictures and videos and what have you. And in my video that I submitted a few years ago, Bernie appears in there swimming in the Beaufort Sea in a wetsuit. And he got all excited about it, and so the caretaker called me. It was a big surprise, but he told me that they were taking care of Bernie, and he just thoroughly enjoyed reliving old memories. This caretaker put my video on Bernie's television set, and he absolutely got a kick out of it, reliving some of the old memories. Subsequently, Bernie and I have talked probably for a total of a couple of hours, and it's kind of neat re-establishing contact with a gentleman that I hadn't seen since the fall of '62. Bernie then said he had about 18 reels of old 8mm movies, and if he sent them to me, would I put them on the site? I said, of course. So I hauled out a very old, matter of fact, I bought it while I was on DEWLine. I hauled out an old 8mm projector, dusted it off, and stuck the films in there. I thought, well, my white walls here would do, and so I projected them on the walls and made a copy with my camcorder. The unfortunate thing is that you can see some of the texture on the walls when there are bright pictures, so ignore it. We're looking at a very amateurish thing, and I hope that you enjoy it. Now, there are a lot of pictures of Bernie's flying around, and I don't know exactly where he was at the time, but some interesting pictures of seals and you know, the construction. One site that was a particular problem was Bar E, Bar Echo. The site was on top of a hill. It was an I site, an intermediate site, but it was just on mud. In the summertime, everything just turned into a big quagmire. And they had this wonderful load of gravel down at the beach, but it was down an 800-foot cliff. So, in their wisdom, they got a C-124 to deliver a conveyor system and the C-124 landed on a frozen lake, and you'll see it in my videos, and I think in Bernie's also. 10,000 foot ice runway, discharged this great big conveyor system, and it was installed at great expense from the shores of the Beaufort Sea up to the top, and they made a pad around the site of decent gravel and also improved the runway rather drastically for the site. The site was ultimately shut down, but then revived with a short-term radar in the 90s. And if you look on the site, it's called Suanagan, the Horton River Bar E Cleanup. One of the videos on there, and you can see that conveyor system that Bernie talked about. I don't know what it cost to get a yard of gravel up the hill, but I imagine it was probably $1,000 a yard by the time you figure out the expense of the whole thing. It was a very difficult site to keep maintained. Behind me, this is a ham radio station. I'm a ham radio operator, AF7A. Anyhow, I think that about does it. We'll get into the movie, and I kind of pieced them together as best I could, did a lot of editing where there were bad spots. These films were shot on old Kodachrome film, as mine were, ASA 25, so it took a lot of light to expose the pictures, and some of them are quite dark. Bernie does have some really neat pictures of time exposures of the first time the sun rose in the springtime, which is in the middle of January, when the sun barely peaked above the southern horizon. He's got some neat pictures in there, and they're certainly historical. Anyhow, I want to thank Bernie for sending them to me, and to Brian Jeffrey for putting them on this website. Enjoy the video. All right, this is the beginning of Bernie Ward's old movies. This looks an awful lot like Penn, Maine in a pretty cold day. It still looks cold. One of the storage tents, I guess, that we had there, and look at that snowdrift. Down at the airport, looks like Bernie is in a Beaver aircraft, and he's taking a picture of the wheel as it's taking off. It's got a ski on it too. Don't know where he's bound. I'll just try to do my best with some of these locations. It seems he did a lot of flying and went to various sites up there, but I think probably the one that he took the most pictures of was Bar Echo, which was 50 miles west of Penn, Maine. And I think this is probably coming into Bar Echo. It sits up on the top of a cliff that's probably 700-800 feet high. Bar Echo's airstrip was extremely short. It was totally muddy, and in the wintertime they used a nearby lake and put a lake or an ice strip in on it that was about 10,000 feet in length. Well, here's a buildup of hoarfrost on one of the Doppler antennas. There's a lot of ice up there. This stuff occurs when supercooled droplets of fog or cloud condense on structures when it's very, very cold, and this is the result. It's a buildup of rime ice, I guess, or it's called hoarfrost. Obviously somebody welding here in a barrel. A lot of these pictures are pretty dark. The movie film at that time was old Kodachrome ASA 25, which took a lot of light to expose it properly, and quite a few of Bernie's pictures are on the dark side, but that's just the way it is. It looks like there's one heck of a wind blowing here. I don't think that's an outhouse. I don't know what the heck that is, but it's an outbuilding of some kind. I think this might be on the frozen lake. This is preparing that ice runway. Bar E was a real problem site for the pin sector, just because of the mud that developed up there in the summertime when the tundra thawed on top. Fortunately, there was quite a deposit of gravel down 800 feet or so on the shores of the Beaufort Sea. But getting it up the hill was quite a problem. They imported a conveyor system, which you'll see later on. There's also a movie about the cleanup at Barrie or Horton River, and it's got pictures of that old conveyor. I believe this is the runway on the frozen lake. It's certainly wide enough. Those hills in the distance are where Bar E is located. It's crazy. They spent millions of dollars, I'm sure, preparing the airstrip and everything else, and then a couple of years later the site was shut down. But then that's the government at work, I guess. Here they're moving a shed of some kind, or a shack. IQR, CFIQR is a registration on that Nordair aircraft, for those of you who are aircraft buffs. While I was up there, Nordair and Pacific Western Airlines did the lateral flights and the vertical flights too. I believe this is probably at Penmain because that's a fuel bowser, and I think they're gassing up an aircraft. Yeah, DC-3 here. I think this may be along the shore at Bar E where they've got all that gravel that they needed up top to fix up the pad for the site and also the runway. I'll bet by the time they paid for the conveyor and all this equipment that they needed up there, the gravel must have cost $1,000 a yard back then, or more. This is a Piper Super Cub, the oversized tires. Quite a bush plane. I don't know the story behind it or what it was doing, but we didn't typically use those things at DEWLine sites. Maybe it was some itinerant pilot came in to refuel. Who knows? There's a truck going up that road there. It looks like a pretty steep one, but I guess that was the access for vehicles to get from the beach up to the site at Bar E. You can see it cresting the hill there. This seems to be a foolhardy job here, standing on those ice-coated girders and knocking hoarfrost off the Doppler radar antenna. I hope that guy had a safety chain on him. Well, here comes an Avro Anson. Pacific Western Airlines used to fly those things laterally along the line. Made out of spruce, a wooden aircraft that dated back to the late 30s. But they had a pretty good record. Here it's springtime. I guess some leads are opening up, and later you'll see some seals along these leads. There's Bar E again. I think that's the conveyor that goes up to the top. And there's the very short airstrip that they were lengthening and putting fresh gravel on. This is part of that conveyor system. There, this is the seals along that crack in the ice. There were bunches of them there. Good polar bear food. Look at them dash off into the water. It was a very quick thing. Apparently this is the wheel of the beaver as he's coming in somewhere. Oh, this is probably Penn, Maine. Here in mid-January, the first couple of days that the sun actually peeped above the horizon, the southern horizon, these are time-lapse pictures taken over probably an hour or two, and they're really quite good. So that's the first day. The second day, apparently there was some cloud cover near the horizon, so you don't see the sun nearly as much, but it was always kind of a neat thing to finally see the sun again after 6 weeks of not seeing it. There would still be about a 3-hour twilight period around solar noon. And this is the third day he did it. He really got ambitious with this. But these are good pictures. There's one of those Bombardier snowmobiles. Some of this film is pretty iffy. I don't know what this is. Maybe I should have edited it out. Oh, it looks like an auxiliary station somewhere or other, I guess. I think there it is again, but holy cow. Now, Bernie must have been going somewhere, probably over to Barter Island, because that aircraft had American registration on it. And this might, in fact, be Maine. I don't know. Probably Wien Airlines. The dark of winter up there. Obviously down at the airstrip. I can just faintly make out a DC-3 there. This is probably the Penn airport area. Well, it looks like the ice has thawed and the guys are going fishing here. One of the Inuit natives running the outboard motor. There are a couple of trout, I would guess. Not bad looking fish. Well, it looks like they've cut the top and bottom out of barrels and they're making culverts by welding old barrels together. There were certainly lots of them up there. But here at the Bar E Strip are a couple of caterpillars pushing the mud. The thawed tundra was just soupy up there, and I guess this was they were laying the base for the new runway once they got gravel into it. Again, the site was shut down just a couple of years after all this was done. There's the mud. Then they brought in a compressor apparently, and they jackhammered some of the, I assume the high spots out. I don't know. It's permafrost can be pretty hard. Well, apparently we're flying in the Beaver again. Oh, this is a water takeoff. I guess they had pontoons on the thing. This is Penn, Maine. I think we're coming into Bar E again. Well, in the dead of summer, the flowers come out in profusion. These are some of them. Apparently these are a couple of ptarmigans in their darker summer feathers. I believe this was up on top of the hill at Bari. This is where they unloaded that conveyor system and then dumped it into trucks. Rather primitive drag line by today's standards. There goes an Avro Anson again. I had two of them at pin INT and INV. Apparently here's another water takeoff in a beaver. Fueling up a beaver with a wobble pump. Not a beaver, an Anson. Excuse me. Well, sea lift in the middle of summer. LST has opened up its doors, put down the ramp, and they're about to start discharging cargo as soon as the landing area is prepared. This is at Pin, Maine. Here Bernie was inside the hold of the ship. Looks like a sled there that one of the natives left on the beach. Still a bit of ice floating on the water, so I would guess these pictures were taken in mid to late July. 24-hour sunlight. That's the POL tanker that brought in diesel fuel and avgas. They laid a pipeline to the shore and just pumped it into tanks. Here apparently the station is getting a new truck. This is from Penmain station area and a couple of sea lift ships down there at the point. There are three sea lift ships in this picture. This might be around Bar 3 or Tuktoyaktuk where they used to overwinter. That's Penmain. I think this is when Bernie left DEWLine. That's obviously the DC-4 that flew south to Edmonton. They generally flew around 5,000–6,000 feet, something like that, so you sometimes hit some crazy weather along the way. And I think this is a few pictures of the Mackenzie River, which is Canada's largest river. It flows north and empties into the Beaufort Sea just north of Inuvik. Then Bernie flew back home to England, and this is on a Canadian Pacific Airlines, what was the name of that aircraft? Big turboprop, Britannia. He landed in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and that aircraft that you saw in the background there briefly coming on it again is a Russian Tu-104. Well, where is it? There it is. And that was kind of an unusual sight. It's taxiing out. I guess it was an Aeroflot aircraft. And in the foreground, a a Vickers Viscount. There's a TU-104. And I guess it's taking off. And then Bernie's in a Viscount here, I can tell. And he's flying home to England, passing an old Super Constellation. But here it is, old Blighty, probably happy to be home. This is the end of the movie.